Good afternoon, good evening, fight fans. Jay's Fight Talk here with an impromptu fight sports review. I've got Liam's dog and my No Punches Pulled co-host of Liam's Fight Night Picks, the man who was reporting from ringside in Ipswich last night, Statman, the man in the know, Liam Tully. He is with me. Here he is. How are we doing, brother? How are we?
I'm all good, mate. As I was just saying to you off camera, the throat was a bit hoarse this morning. It was a special night, I think, for me. As much as I wanted Fabio to win last night, my appreciation for what Hooney was doing was quite high, despite the fact I was taking pelters from people around me that were not too pleased that I was enjoying Hooney's work. But the reality is, mate, I appreciate boxing. That Wardley moment, as we come on to, was phenomenal. But we're going to briefly touch on Friday, aren't we?
Let's go chronologically. So we had a main event from Newcastle on Friday. Contrary to what Wasserman will tell you and what the production may make it look like, it was a virtually empty arena with whoever paid for the black curtains spent a heck of a lot because it was an empty arena. But look, Josh Kelly came out with an opponent that on paper looked the part. I think we'd said that he should walk through him unless it's a banana skin and he has an off night, and he stopped him with the first punch he hit him with. I can't read much into it. What's your take on it, Liam?
I mean, the whole event felt weird. So Matt Elliott at the Counterpunch that I've worked with this week on the Wardley fight was there on Friday.
Shout out Matt and Counterpunch.
I had a chat with him and I said, Channel 5's broadcasting position was awful because all you could see behind them was black sheets, couldn't you, that were over the seats. I said, how many people were in there? He said, around 7 o'clock, you had about 2,000 in for some of the undercard fighters, but they all left.
Shout out Ben Marksby, one of Troy Williamson's good friends.
He reckons there's around 1,000 people at a push in there by the time Josh Kelly boxed, and that, unfortunately, is to Josh Kelly's detriment as much as it is Wasserman's. Wasserman don't promote fights in the best way because their attention is over here on misfits. But Josh Kelly also isn't a ticket seller. Us as boxing purists that can appreciate a boxer and a mover will enjoy him, but you're not going to shell out 60, 70 quid on a Friday night to go and watch him. In terms of what he done what he should have done. We said we didn't want Josh Kelly to go 10 rounds because that would tell us more about him. He got the job done inside 2.5 minutes. Good enough performance, but now my issue with Josh is: are we going to wait 6 months to see him again, or are we going to see him in the summer? That's the thing. Now we need to.
He called out Murtazaliev. His promoter called out Murtazaliev. Within 3 minutes, Murtazaliev, and I quote, "Easy work," is exactly what he said about that fight. Look, he's not a big enough draw, right? Let's be real. Eddie Hearn had him. Right, had Josh Kelly from him turning over, I believe.
Yeah.
Right, let him go after his one defeat to David Afanasian. Right, which 90% of domestic welterweights would lose to David Afanasian at the time. Right, he would have rebuilt him. And look, let's not beat around the bush. The fact that none of Britain's biggest promoters have picked up Josh Kelly tells you everything you need to know about Josh Kelly's career. It's unfortunate because he's one of the most skillful fighters we have on these shows. But it's not just about skills. You've got to be a draw. You've got to have personality.
You've got to put bums on seats. On seats.
He hasn't got the full package. And look, whether or not he's beat a family friend of mine or not, right, in Troy Williamson, I can look at boxing with an unbiased, to a certain degree of an unbiased eye. And we said it on Friday. I think me and you said it. Even when he was thanking his opponent, it seemed disingenuous for me. He seems as really like he patronises people, and I just get that feel from him. And I think that comes across to a majority of casuals and people in boxing, hence why he's fighting on Friday night in a half-empty arena in front of... How many people have seen that on TV? 10,000, maybe? 20,000?
Yeah, look, let's be... So we're going to come on to Saturday in a minute. So having had something through earlier, there was just under 20,500 inside Portman Road last night for Fabio. That's a fantastic effort.
That's decent.
Callum Simpson, I haven't seen the numbers, but that's so
Look, it looked full.
Yeah, but personalities. this is the difference. Is Josh Kelly a better boxer than both Fabio Wardley and Callum Simpson?
Yes.
But no, he doesn't. And that's where it comes. If you have a personality, if you have a bit about you, if you're personable to your fans, you sell tickets. Josh Kelly's never had that, which is why he kind of fits being a Wasserman fighter, because it fits the personality of what they do. Josh Kelly is your typical cocky lad, isn't he? If he wasn't a boxer, he'd be the geezer in skinny jeans, drinking Corona in the corner of, on a night out. You get what I mean? He's that sort of guy. I really hope, though, for Josh Kelly that he gets an opportunity, because we said before on and off camera, the way he was treated after losing to Nessian sucked. Deserved to be dropped. He personally, for me, doesn't deserve to be in the option, regardless of everything else. I just hope whatever's next for Josh Kelly gives him an opportunity to fulfill the potential that could be there. I'm not saying he's going to beat a world champion, but give him the opportunity to show it. And don't leave us waiting 8 months. If Josh Kelly doesn't fight this side of September, it's a failure. From Adam Booth as his manager and his trainer, from Wasserman and his promoters. If we're not seeing him before September, it's a failure. You've done 2.5 minutes work. The most bruising that might be on you will be from celebrating with your team afterwards. You've taken no physical damage from what the opponent's done to you. Get back in the ring, get back out there. He's always in fantastic shape, Josh. We say it all the time. He's always in fantastic shape, so let's see him in another fight.
2 of the 3 guys that he's beaten in his last 4 fights, Troy Williamson and Ishmael Davis, right, have both had more and bigger fights than he's had, and he's beaten them both. I know Ish stepped in. Didn't Ish step in for him?
8 days' notice. Stepped in for Liam Smith.
Stepped in for Liam Smith, but Josh beat him, right? And he ended up fighting, was it Baranchik?
Yeah.
On a Saudi card?
On the Usyk Fury 2 card, yeah.
Troy Williamson has ended up fighting in Vegas against Jai Davis. What's his name?
Yeah, Jai Davis.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The American prospect. They've both had bigger fights than him, right? Williamson's not with a promoter. He's sort of on a fight-by-fight deal, I believe. I'm not privy to that information. And Ishmael Davis got himself put in the spotlight, albeit off a loss. That is how you try to build on your career. I think Josh Kelly, for me personally, and I don't know him, I've had a couple of interactions with him, but I don't know him. The feeling I get is that the attitude we think he has potentially rubs promoters up the wrong way, and he thinks he's entitled to something. And I think he thinks it's going to fall on his lap, and he doesn't do much work outside of the ring to build his brand and to make people like him. I follow him on social media, and all you ever see from him on social media are holiday shots of him sunning himself on 5-star beaches, posing in his kitchen, or photographs where he's not looking at the camera, right? Or him dancing in the gym, showing you how fast his footwork is. That does not resonate with the fans. They want to see stuff that they can relate to. That's what they want to see. Even if it's just you going out for your tea with your kids, film a bit of that. They don't want to see you pouting, standing next to a G-Wagon, or looking the other way with a fucking quote that you see people on the Live, Laugh, Love. That kind of nonsense.
Yeah,
that's the feel I get from him. And no disrespect meant to you, Josh. You've done things that I could only dream of, but I'm looking at it from a fan's perspective. I clamber to watch you because I rate your skills. Casuals, a lot of casuals don't even know who he is.
No.
And that's a shame for me.
That says everything about Josh Kelly. Look, we don't really want to touch on it too much because it was the quickest fight of the weekend.
Yes, Antonio, brother, how are we?
But, it's
a
Josh
shame,
Kelly either needs a final eliminator or something meaningful next, and that's all I'm going to say on it.
Okay, moving on then. We'll start in Barnsley. I'm a Yorkshireman. Barnsley's 30, 40 minutes up the road from me. Callum Simpson, I disagree that he's the biggest ticket seller in British boxing. Possibly the biggest ticket seller called Callum, but I think Callum Smith might have something to say about that. But look,
biggest in Yorkshire, mate. Biggest in Yorkshire.
Yeah, the biggest called Callum from Barnsley that boxes. We'll give you that. But look, Ben's just trying to do his job. Don't know if he'll be doing his job for Callum for much longer, from what Callum's been saying. But look, what a fight. The downside for me is I was trying to watch that whilst watch Wardley versus Hooney because the staggering of the start times didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is some brainiac let Callum Simpson have a 45-minute ring walk. I shit you not, right? No, I'm being...
No, I've watched it. I've
right?
seen it.
But I was talking to my friend, shout out Mad Mitch TV. You guys know Mitch, he's a regular follower. I was talking to Mitch at the time, watching Mitch get banned from Fanzone on DAZN for being highly inappropriate. That's another conversation. But he'd said it's getting ready now. They're getting ready to ring walk. So I thought, sound. I'll take my dogs on the field, do some sprints, 10 minutes, and by the time I get in, they'll be halfway through the first round.
Yeah.
Goes out with the dogs, comes back in, dries them off, gives them some water, gets a bottle of water, gets settled. I thought, there'll be two rounds in now. They were halfway through the ring announcements. So that by the time they were going into round 3, Wardley Hooney was going into round 1. Didn't work. It didn't work because Simpson and Zuko just was a good enough fight to justify my attention. But Hooney Wardley was a good enough fight to justify my attention. So I got that pissed off with split screen. I ended up streaming, having DAZN on my iPad with my phone turned on its side with Sky Go on to watch them at the same time. I had to watch them again afterwards because I couldn't get the benefit of the Callum Simpson fight watching it sort of punch for punch.
Yeah, so look, I got home from Portman Road last night and about 12:30. Sorry, mate. I came in, sat down, and the first thing I done was put on the Callum Simpson fight. I skipped through the undercards because there wasn't a lot on there, but I got straight into the main event. And yeah, I watched the ring walks and I had enough time to go into the kitchen, make a cup of tea, come back, and Callum's just getting in the ring. But
yeah,
talking about the fight,
they're having a good one at Liam's.
Talking about the fight for a second, Zuko came to fight, mate. He came to put a dent in Callum Simpson.
Can I, 1 second, because I know what you're going to say, but let me just ask you a quick question that'll lead into that. Is Zuko that good, or is Simpson not good enough?
That's what I was going to come on to. That's what I was going to come on to. I think last night we learned more about Callum Simpson's level, more than Zuko, if that makes sense. So yes, okay, the knockdown after 8 seconds, you can put down to a number of things. But for it then to happen from the same punches in round 3 shows you that there's a fundamental flaw there from Callum, that he's not recognising where the punches are coming from, and he's getting hit by the same combination again to go over in the same fashion. Did he win pretty much every other minute and every other round of the fight, bar the 2 knockdowns? Yes. But Zuko's not known as being a puncher, and he's put Callum on his ass twice. Fair play to Callum. When he had him rocking and rolling, and he got the 3 stoppages, and then the corner stood there and tapped the ref on the shoulder and said, "We've had enough." Fair play. He's finished clinically. He's got killer instincts, but there's a couple of things there that are making me question things. The way that the same combination, the same shots has put him down twice is a big thing for me. To not learn a lesson to have the same thing happen 6 minutes later. Look, very impressive. He's now British, Commonwealth, European champion. We know the fight they're going to make next. It's going to be Mark Jeffers. It's going to be in Sheffield in October, November time. Who knows who's going to promote and broadcast it, but we know that's what the fight's going to be, don't we? And I actually think Mark Jeffers is a very good fight because we found out more about Callum Simpson's level last night. He has skills, he has potential, he has talent, but there's still something missing. He still isn't ready to jump in with anyone in the top 10 in the world.
Absolutely not. And I tell you what, it did show me last night. He wants to stay at 168. Don't go anywhere near 175.
You don't want to go
I
up,
was talking Ben Whittaker, that type of level. Ben Whittaker will smash his head in with that because he did a lot of things last night on repeat. Rinse and repeat. Shout out Sam, SW Fight Up. If you're not subscribed, get yourself subscribed. Our guys are away this weekend, but he will be back with us on Tuesday night. As you said, Zuko did it as well. They both showed the level. So that uppercut that took Zuko down was exactly the same punch that took him down all 3 times. He just never changed anything, just kept his hands wide apart. Simpson was
Never
getting
went there,
caught with
yeah.
basic stuff last night. And he likes to tear up too much, but I don't think his chin's strong enough to do that at a top level. I think Hamza Shearer has beat him, I think, at 168.
The crowd factored into Callum last night. He made a massive point that what disappointed him against Chile last year was he didn't get a stoppage. So you knew he wanted that last night. You knew he was going to chase the stoppage. And he took a risk. And if Mark Jeffers was in the opposite corner last night, Mark Jeffers would have beaten him. So whereas we at the start of the week poo-pooed the Callum Simpson Mark Jeffers fight, I do really
now.
See that now.
I think it's more competitive than I thought it would have been this time last week.
Yeah, which is fair enough. Look, we learn all the time. We learn all the time about different things. Callum Simpson deserves a hell of a lot of props because everyone throws shade at boxer. We do it ourselves. However, one of their biggest success stories is Callum Simpson. Callum Simpson was a catchweight journeyman that went around Manchester, Yorkshire, taking on opponents at the last minute, trying to pick up wins. Since boxers come in, he's done an area title, English, British, Commonwealth, European. It's fantastic. It's now not rushing him in with a top contender. It's giving him someone like a Mark Jeffers and allowing him to carry on learning. I'm a big Callum Simpson fan. I love how he boxes, but we saw some fundamental holes last night that need to be addressed before.
Yeah, even though he's the British champion, I don't believe he's cemented himself as the best in Britain yet.
No.
I don't know who I'm not saying anybody springs to mind that's better than him. What I'm saying is, rather than just flitting through the levels, establish yourself there. So defend your British, defend your European, win your British outright, defend your European, then go on. Serve your apprenticeship properly, the old school way. If you throw Callum Simpson in now at world level, he gets beat for me. He gets beat because there are better 168s, possibly in Europe, but certainly at world level, that will beat Callum Simpson on last night's performance. But we've also got to bear in mind, I don't know if him fighting at home is an advantage for him, because sometimes it can heap way too much pressure on him. They're screaming at every punch that they think's connected, and it could be having an adverse effect on him.
I think how he dealt with Steve Woodall in Sheffield in January and how he dealt with Elvis in London in February are better accounts for himself than what we saw last night. Something about 1,000 fans were in Sheffield. Something about, I think it was 2,000 went to London. That's enough. Do you get what I mean? That's still support there, but it's not overbearing and raucous. It's not your nan's neighbour who cut your hair when you were 6 is there because
they personally know you.
There's less,
and it's
there's less of a personability there. And we're going to come on to Fabio in a minute. And it's similar with that. I think Callum's next fight, Sheffield's good. I don't mind him going to Sheffield. If they make it Manchester, fine. But something about Oakwell and the emotional connection. The only time I want to hear that announced for Callum Simpson again is if he's getting a world title fight. Save it now. It's fantastic. He's done it twice. He doubled the crowd he got at Chile to last fight against Zuko. But save it now for if he ever gets a shot at a world title. Don't dilute it, because otherwise he'll come unstuck in a fight he shouldn't do, if that makes sense, because of the emotional
I agree. I'm excited to see what's next, though. You know, he got the win ultimately, and we should get an announcement fairly soon. Right then, I have to say this, as much as it sickens me, I'm gonna clap. Manchester United finally got a win. Well done. We saw a win at Portman Road as well. 2 for 1. Roller coaster. I mean, look, we'd said that I'd said I expected Fabio Wardley to beat and stop Justice Hune. I did caveat that earlier on this week, saying that if he doesn't stop him early, I could see Hune boxing his ears off, and I think I got 5 to 1 on Hune winning on points. We were heading that way. Fabio Wardley, for me, I gave him a round in that fight. I think you gave him 2, did you? You had it 7-2. We learned something last night, and I'm going to go back to something that I've stopped myself going on about and chastise people for saying, but it looked like a white-collar boxer against an Olympian last night. That's what we saw. Not a white-collar... I'm being dismissive, but because Fabio's dramatically improved. He's improved exponentially over the last 2 years. But what we saw is a kid that's boxed from 6, 7, 8 years old at a high level, amateur, and then turned pro, to somebody that picked it up fairly late, 18, whatever, had some white collar, 20.
When he was 10 years, he's been
white collar
boxing.
fights, some unlicensed fights, and then he's turned pro. And if Fabio Wardley didn't have a knockout punch, he'd have got beat easy last night. And you were there ringside, Liam. Yeah. What did it look like from ringside?
Oh, mate, look. First and foremost, big time boxing, being in Suffolk, being in Ipswich. Make your jokes, Jay. We don't get this in our neck of the woods very often. It was absolutely fantastic. Suffolk, Ipswich turned out last night. 20,500 people in there. The atmosphere from very early on, I'm talking from when Lewis Richardson fought, was crackling. Lots of Norwich bashing, lots of singing songs. It was great. However, the main event started, and I didn't like Fabio from the start. And I think I said to you last night when I got home that Fabio looked like he wanted to get it done inside the first two. He was swinging for the fences. And look, he was having success, but you could tell it wouldn't be sustainable. So when at the start of the third round, Hooney gets his attention with a nice left hand, that then sets the tone, doesn't it? It was that jab and that left hand that Hooney was winning the fight off of. It was very amateurish in terms of how he was doing it. He was doing it by scoring points rather than looking for a knockout, if that makes sense. Hooney was doing it the amateur way. I'm going to score points on you. Fabio can't adjust to it. Fantastic. And I'll be open and honest in admitting this. I am getting all sorts of pelters from people sitting around me because I'm openly saying that Hooney is boxing Wardley's head off. Didn't enjoy saying it, but I was being very honest. And I'm copping pelters, and I had a couple of empty pint plastic cups thrown at me, all water off a duck's back. I was being honest, mate. I was more than happy to be honest. When he landed that right hand, and I said this to you off camera, that is for me, and me and Lucas spoke last night, that is the single best moment I've been in a boxing arena or stadium for. I was jumping around with strangers. I lost my head. It was fantastic. And it goes back to things that both fighters said during the week. So Justice Hooney said, I'm going to come over and put on a boxing lesson. Justice Hooney was delivering a boxing lesson. I was taking notes from my scribing wheel. It was fantastic. But Fabio Wardley said, I need one moment. All I need is one punch. And Hooney said, I am better than Fabio Wardley in every department other than one punch power. What changed the fight? One punch. Look, I'm still on cloud nine today. My cousin was at the fight last night, and we've been reminiscing about it while we've just been having Sunday dinner. He's not a boxing person. That's the first time he's been to a boxing event, and he, besides the Wardley fight, loved him last night. I'm going to get him along to more fights with me. It's what it's all about. Fabio showed last night that he's got a chin because he was getting peppered at times, but he never looked.
I think his look at Hooney doesn't hit that hard. Sorry to cut you.
Granted, but if there's one thing we've learned from the first Fraser Clark fight and Justice Hooney, that even when the tide's against Fabio and he's shipping shots, either he's got a flipping outstanding
he's got the dog in him. He's got the dog in him.
Or he can take
the dog in him.
Yeah. Look, I watched it back this morning, and even I knew, and I scored it the same way. I gave Fabio the first 2 rounds, Hooney everything from the 3rd to the 9th. And then even watching it back, I'm going into the 10th thinking, come on, Fabio, you need to do something. Like, it looks so unlikely. You know, sometimes in fights, the punches landed a few shots, hasn't he? So you know it's there.
Never landed
Fabio hasn't done that. From the second round.
That was the first punch from the second round, really, of any great note.
But if you want to learn if you want to show kids in an amateur gym how to do that, he took his head off his centre, didn't he, perfectly, and he brought the right hand round, connected on the temple.
But I think
that is the technical way of throwing
it. But Hooney did something there that he'd not done since the 3rd or 4th round. He exchanged with him. What he was doing prior to that was working for him is he wasn't biting on any of the feints, and he was letting his hands go when he got into range. What he did this time is he got into range and then waited for Fabio to throw and went with him. Whereas before that, he was not biting on the feints, but dipping, and then getting in. 1, 2, 3, 4, getting out. 1 out, 1 out. This time, he stayed there and thought, fuck it, I'll throw with him. And that's all she wrote because, all right, there's a lot of people moaning about the count, but you could see that Hooney wasn't ready when he got to his feet. He got up at 9, I think, 8, 9.
He was 8 going into 9.
Though. You could see he was sort of wobbly and just not. And he never complained. He said, in fact, I've seen an interview with him in the change rooms. He basically said, "Fuck it, it's what it is. Head up, we do what we do."
Mate, I tell you what, I was done by 9. Me and whoever the bloke was sitting behind me were flipping, having a huge jumping up and down embrace. Like, if that fight carried on, I probably wouldn't have even realised. I'll be honest. I'd done quite well all night because I've done my review for Counterpunch. Was staying quite calm, taking some notes on my phone. Lost. I will be honest. I lost all composure.
I was shocked. I was dumbfounded. I was like, "Whoa." Because it was...
Mate, I made a noise and I jumped up out of my seat when that punch landed because I was kind of the conclusion. I was appreciating... He was
getting beat, man. He was on his way to getting beat. I didn't see it happening.
I was watching people leave around me, which tells you everything you need to know. I was just sitting there appreciating Hooney. So when that punch lands, I did make a high-pitched squeal and jump up, but it was the moment of that punch landing. It was Fabio showing that he's got the dog, he's got the punch power, and the chips can be as down as they were last night. He may never be that up against it in a fight again as he was last night, if that makes sense, because it was a home crowd. Everything was against Fabio at that point last night, and he delivers. Nothing like heavyweight boxing. You don't get that. So, again, I said to my cousin, he's talking about some of the undercard fights, and he said, there's just more jeopardy at heavyweights, isn't there? So that's exactly what it is. That one moment that can change a fight, you don't get unless it's the big boys. Because let's be honest, if that was... Let's use the Stephen Ward and Mike Perez fight down at Cruiserweight as an example. If that was followed the same pattern as the Fabio fight, Perez is... You get what I mean? Perez is winning on points. It's not changing. But because it's heavyweights, there's still that interest there. There's still that moment. Fabio looks like he wants Michael Hunter. I mean, Michael Hunter might need the payday because Don King probably isn't going to pay him after Pulev. But look, I think his main thing now, he's got his first baby due in 2 weeks, is daddy daycare. He said during the week, it'll be daddy daycare all summer. He wants to be back out in October.
Problem. I see a massive problem here. And the problem I see is that he's now got an interim heavyweight title, right? Which means he's in for some massive fights. I think if that had been Jarrell Miller last night, he'd have lost.
Miller would have just outsized him. It would have been the size.
It felt for me like he blew his load after 2 rounds, trying to get him out of there, and he just didn't have cardio to keep up with the movement of Hooney. Hooney boxed like an amateur last night. Fast feet, in and out, as fast feet as you can have at that kind of size. But,
Fabio's ring walk wasn't anywhere near as long as Callum Simpson's, but the emotional connection
was
exactly the same.
You exert a lot there.
He exerted a lot, and every moment of Thomas Treiber doing the announcements, I'm not sure how much you saw on the camera, Fabio is pacing around the ring, and I liked it. He was G'ing up the crowd. I like it.
He's not zoned in for me when you're doing that.
After 6 minutes, when he's, not got Hooney out of there, I was worried. Personally, I was worried. I thought, if Hooney can box and get on his jab, that's exactly what he done. Look, I said in my report, which you could read over on the Counterpunch, check that out if you haven't. I've shared it on my Instagram, that the trinket is unfortunate for Fabio here because an interim world title means he's in a position that maybe he doesn't want to be in.
Yeah.
Look, this gives him a bargaining chance to get some massive fights when Usyk moves away from boxing, either after Dubois or towards the end of this year. In reality, Fabio's still got that mid-level to go. I'm not a fan of interim titles being defended. We've spoken about it in the UFC, haven't we, with Tom Aspinall because of what's going on with John Jones. It's crazy. However, if Fabio Wardley's next 2 fights, he defends the interim world title, fine, because he's going to learn from it. What I don't want to see now is that rush him in with a Kabayel or Parker, etc. Do you see what I mean? I'd rather see him stay at this fringe world level. And look, for anyone who wants to come at me, it's my local boy. I've just said similar with Callum Simpson. I don't want to see Callum moved up. I want him to see him stay around British and European level. It's exactly the same with Fabio. By rushing him, you're going to kill the momentum because does Fabio have the equaliser to see him win the world title? Yes. but he still needs a few more tests first. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. Good evening, DJ Pat. Just going on to what he said there. I don't believe Spencer Brown's bullshit about bicep injury, because some of them right and left hands that Hooney were throwing, he would not have been able to throw with a bicep injury, or he would have made it worse. I didn't see that, and I don't know whether that affected the result.
So, Justice Hooney, after his fight in January on the Opetaia and Yuka card, done all his post-fight interview with a massive ice pack around his bicep. I have none for anyone who wants to point it out, but that was the area where the injury was. And all the talk was, we're not going to see him until the back end of the summer.
Whose fault's that then?
Apparently, well, he has had a procedure.
Don't fight.
He had a procedure 2 days after the fight, and he was scheduled to fight on the Opetaia card this afternoon. So he was always going to fight this weekend. I think Spencer Brown, look, typical spin, the same way that Frank Warren could have come out with Fabio's distracted about the fact he's about dads if Fabio ended up losing last night. You see what I mean? The injury's there. I'm not dismissing it for a second. However, he was landing jabs. He was landing
boxing well. Boxing well, mate.
He was boxing in a rhythm. I'm sure now we're going to get an X-ray and some big operation for Hooney, but if Justice Hooney won that fight, they wouldn't have mentioned his bicep. It would not have come up. That's what I mean. It's spinning it in your narrative so your fighter comes out with a little bit of credit. You don't need to do that with Hooney. Hooney's stock's gone up like this right now. How many reports have you seen today about Hooney and Joseph Parker? Just off of the back of what he done in defeat last night. That wasn't getting spoken about before. Tells you everything you need to know. Justice Hooney is a player in the heavyweight division. I said it all week against my hometown boy, and he will get bigger fights again. Do I think he should go with Parker next? No.
No.
Do I think he's not too far away from that level? Also no.
Not a million miles away.
He's done himself a credit last night, and he sort of dismissed the piss-poor matchmaking he's had. The puddings he's been knocking over, minus Kevin Lorena, he's shown that he's been ready for a bigger test, someone on Fabio Wardley's level before. He's just not been getting it. So there's a path for both men. Wardley and Hooney too in 24, 36 months' time wouldn't at all. In a different position where
I thought you meant
belt in the way wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. I think we'll see them fight each other again. I think Hooney's going to want that fight again because, look, he made one mistake. That's all it takes. He made one mistake. Barring that mistake, he wins that fight comfortably for me.
Justice Hooney takes more out of the fight than Fabio. Fabio's narrative will be one-punch power. And that's fantastic. Ben Davidson, and we've spoken about how good Ben is at analysing fighters and getting his fighters.
I need to ask something about him in a minute.
When Ben analyses that fight, he won't find a lot for Fabio. Minus the first 2 rounds and 1 minute 47 of the 10th round, there's not a lot else for Fabio. What did you want to ask about Ben?
But why is he there? Ben's not his coach, is he? He's got his original coach.
No, he trains out of Ben's gym down in Basildon. So he's at the Ben Davidson, whatever.
So why is his original coach there then as a fucking spare part? It makes no sense.
No. He goes down with him. So it's kind of, they brought... Fabio's original coach was very honest of saying about 2 years ago, we need someone that's... He's come up with him from the white collar scene. He wanted someone in the camp that's got a bit more experience. So Ben Davidson's fitted it. That's why Moses Atama was there last night, because he's supporting his stablemate. Ben Davidson has come in as the more professional coach into that team that Fabio's stuck with since he was doing the white collar stuff.
Boxer size Ben. I don't rate him. Boxer size Ben. I don't rate him.
I understand it to an extent, and it is what it is. At some point, Wardley needs to have a tough conversation about what he wants to do. Do I love the fact he's kept people that lived within a stone's throw of Portman Road with him all the way? Yes, but if he wants to make that next step, Joe McNally was doing Pierce O'Leary in a fight before. With Joe McNally and Declan O'Rourke would be a really smart move.
I don't like Ben Davison, certainly not with heavyweight. He's very defensive. He's a defensive first coach for me. And
that's why I worked with Lee Wood so well.
It did to a degree. But he hasn't. He's very similar to Joe Gallagher. He doesn't have a plan B, and he hopes that plan A will work. And we saw with Joshua when he tried plan B, that just didn't work for him. And anyway, look, we've had a fantastic weekend of boxing. As Liam said, you can catch his fight reports. He's been there all week, press conferences, weigh-ins, and fight night itself over on The Counterpunch. The counterpunch was actually on Liam's Fight Night Picks, doing some picks with Liam, which is live, which is over on Jay's Fight Talk YouTube. Right.
It's a good weekend, actually. Please go back and watch that show. I had a good weekend.
He's had a good one. So, yeah, let's get back there. Right, let's go to a different sport now, because last night, early hours of this morning, saw UFC 316 take place in New Jersey. We won't cover the whole card. We'll cover the main card. We got Kevin Holland battered Vincenzo Luque. Wasn't really close. Well, the one for me that disappointed me and my son were talking last night. We always have a UFC hacker, and he asked me about Patchy Mix. And when I saw that they were fighting Mario Batista, I thought, tough matchup. But then I thought, wow, no, it's Patchy, man. Patchy's beating them all. They say that the UFC jitters is a thing, and I'd always dismissed it before, but Patchy just looked like he was fighting in treacle last night. He couldn't get his head off the line. He didn't try. I think he attempted 2 takedowns, and he's wrestling heavy, and he just got beat up by a guy that was shorter, smaller. A bit flat for me from Patchy Mix. What do you reckon?
It was a really difficult 15 minutes. Because you could see his way to victory, but he couldn't do it, could he? Like you've just said, everything was in his favor, but he couldn't, for whatever reason. UFC jitters, didn't take training camp seriously enough. It just wasn't there last night. I was equally as disappointed with Kelvin Gastelum for simple reasons. I mean, we got to stop giving Gastelum slots on main cards on pay-per-views.
I think he might get dropped now. He's not a middleweight for a start. I mean, he's built like me, for God's sake. He's got a belly hanging over his pants.
What does that make him then if he's not a middleweight?
He's a welterweight, isn't he?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you're calling yourself a welterweight, mate. If you went light heavy,
I'm not. I just meant the shape. Fuck, I wish I could make 170. I can't make 185. I can't make 205, let alone 170.
But this is the thing, isn't it? Like, we talk about Dana White privilege, and it's a joke, isn't it? But the reality is, Gastelum's had a lot of Dana White privilege, because what he's done in the last 18 months, should he be, fight before the co-main on a pay-per-view?
No.
Should he have maybe been first or second on the prelims?
Possibly,
yes. Yeah. Come at us both for saying this, but that's the reality of where his performance is.
He's not good enough anymore, and certainly not a 185 against a big 185er.
His best days are 5 years ago. Joe Pyler done everything he had to do last night without ever overly exerting himself. It was impressive, and having the name of Kelvin Gastelum on his record is going to help him. But in reality, this version of Kelvin Gastelum is not the one we were seeing 4 or 5
Well,
years
he had, look, one of the fights certainly one of the fights of the year with Adesanya for the interim title.
That's 2021 though, mate. That's how he,
he's not a 185er. He's never going to be anything at 185. I'm sorry to say this, because Kelvin Gastelum is a great fighter and has had some great fights. His best days are at 170. His best days are behind him. On to the next. Go on, sorry, what were you going to say?
It's laziness. Like, we talk about fighters all the time that could be at the next weight class. If Gastelum wanted to be, he could still be at welterweight, but it's laziness.
Kevin, sorry to cut you, but I'll give you an example. Kevin Holland, right, fights at 170 and 185. There's not an ounce of fat on him because he moves up and down properly. Joaquin Buckley's done it. Hamzat Chimaev probably will struggle to make 170 now, but has flipped between the two. The only reason Kelvin Gastelum fights at 185 is because he can't be asked to cut properly. He's missed weight like 3 times. He's worse than Johnny Hendricks, for God's sake. Sorry, I've just forgot. Shout out Ben Askren. It's come out today that Ben Askren is suffering from pneumonia. He's been unresponsive. He's in ICU at the moment. So our thoughts, prayers, and good healing energy from myself. I know Liam will mirror what I'm saying. So love and prayers go out, and get well soon, Ben. Sending our thoughts and prayers to your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Only saw it earlier on this afternoon. Never nice when an ex-fighter who's given us some moments is in this position. All we hope for is that he's able to pull through for his family, his wife, his kids.
Absolutely.
Thoughts and prayers up for Ben Askren. But look, I know how high you are on the fighter that won the co-main event, so I'll let you wax lyrical in a second. But
I
Jesus
love Kayla
Christ,
Harrison.
was Kayla Harrison impressive last night?
I love Kayla
There's
Harrison.
a way to win,
What a
and then
girl.
there's
What
a
a girl.
way to win.
Yeah.
And she's done this latter of that.
She did what she said she was going to do. She said what she was going to do. I've been a fan of Kayla Harrison since she won her second Olympic gold medal. I jumped on the hype train then. I'd heard about this American girl, this judoka, and I've followed her career. I've had a couple of interactions with her on social media. She's actually really, really nice in person. She's had her personal struggles. She's openly speaks about those. You know, she's been a victim of sexual abuse. I think her sister has issues with addiction, and she's adopted her sister's children. She's taken her sister's children on as her own, whilst maintaining levels that others can only dream of. She is finally, right, won the big show. She won the PFL tournament. I think she got to the final. Her only loss is in the final against what's her name? She fought Cyborg. Oh God. Anyway, she basically was fought half-assed in the second PFL final. She was bored, lost in that. She's come to the UFC. She had a couple of fights. She's beat Holly Holm in her last fight, and a lot of people thought that the fact that she's got her, and look, she's massive. She walks round at, I don't know, 170, something like that.
Yeah.
For her to get down to 135 is, mate, do you not remember her struggling to get down to 145?
We spoke about it, didn't we? We yeah. Look, mate, she's finally getting her flowers.
She made it look easy.
She's a phenomenal athlete, and you just said it. She made it look easy. And we're going to come on to Merab in the main event in a minute, who done something similar. But Kayla Harrison now cannot be denied any longer. She's got a belt now. Dana, you're going to have to deal with her. You're going to have to give her what she wants. Now. Well, not what you get what I mean.
We know what she wants.
Yeah.
I don't like the fight for her. I don't like the fight.
I love the fact she wants it, though.
Yeah,
and look,
and everybody knows that the reason Amanda left American Top Team is because she didn't like the fact that she was eventually going to have to fight Kayla, and she left and retired, but then didn't retire, set up her own Basically, she left the gym because she didn't like not being the number one. It's that simple. But it was all friendly. She brought, apparently it was organic. She brought Amanda up into the cage afterwards. They did the face-off. We're going to see this fight later on this year. I think October time. I think we'll see this towards the back end of the year.
To anyone that can hear what's going on in the background here, this is the way to Amarello play, and I do not know what my family are doing. I'm very glad to be in this room at the moment because I imagine there's a few bottles of red opened. Anyway, look, Kayla Harrison is. What's the UFC lacking at the moment? What's the conversation we've had? Superstars. Kayla Harrison is a bona fide superstar. Give her the fights. Another bona fide superstar, Merab. He needs one more defense now, and then you've got to start having a conversation about where he sits in the Hall of Fame. Could you say that's extreme? No, because of what he's done.
Look at his resume.
Read
out the names, man.
Look at what he done. So the first Sugar fight, look what he done there. Fantastic that night at the Sphere. What did he do against Umar Nurmagomedov?
Go on, we'll try again.
Last time out, he lost the first round and then he ragdolled Umar for the rest of that fight. And then not only did he beat Sean O'Malley last night, he submitted him.
Yeah.
He submitted Sean O'Malley last night. We are now in the realms, like I say, one more fight and it's a Hall of Fame pound for pound conversation. Merab, you may not like his personality and his shithouse nature outside of the octagon.
I love him.
But yeah, some people rubs them up the wrong way. But when he's in there, when the pressure's on,
fucking animal.
Pressure's his
He's a machine.
Pressure is his love language is pressure. When it's on, when the chips are down, when he needs to fucking deliver, he does shit like he done last night, and that was thoroughly impressive. I can't say
look, Sean O'Malley, the shtick, the brand, Sugar Show. He did the Conor McGregor shtick, and it got him to where he's multi-million-dollar deals, one of the biggest stars in the sport. But he got exposed in the first and the second Merab fight to where his game's lacking. His wrestling is non-existent. His takedown defense is average. He's fairly strong to say how skinny he is because he's good at getting back up to his feet. But if he can't keep you at range and pick you off, his game's pretty null and void for me. And Merab showed that last night. He was on his way to doing the same as what he'd done with him in the first fight. But as soon as he got hold of him, it was weird. It was like a Darce choke, but he had it the other way around. It was
just the way he flipped him, wasn't it?
Yeah, and his squeeze pressure must be fucking strong because O'Malley tapped pretty quick.
A Conor-esque tap from when we saw him tap against Diaz more than Khabib. But look, you talk about Sugar Sean's limitations.
Free Nick Diaz, by the way. Nick Diaz. I'm not saying rehab. I'm not saying anybody that knows me knows I'm an advocate for rehab and rehabilitation. I spent long enough as an addict, but free fucking Nick Diaz. Kidnapping him is not the way. Nicking him across the border. Free Nick Diaz. You come stay
I'm not
laughing
at you. I'm laughing at the karaoke going on next door. Look, you talk about Sugar Sean being Sterling to pick up the belt. On the way to looking at submitting Sean before he got caught by that shot, wasn't he? You think about the position the fight finished in.
He just run in, didn't he?
Sterling was in court. Yeah, and stopped. I think. Look. Sean has potential to get back to the Merab moves up because he's bored. He doesn't beat Merab. We don't need to see a trilogy. The thing is, because of the lack of depth.
For Sean?
I think because of the lack of depth there are at these lower weight classes, we may end up seeing an undeserved trilogy if Sean can pick up a couple of wins. But it's all about Merab. What Merab wants, Dana and Hunter need to give him.
Do you know what I love about the Merab story? The fact that he came through the Contender Series. We had the Ricky Simon loss. Was that the one where he got caught in the choke and he was doing that with his legs?
Caught in the choke, yeah.
They gave it as a sub, didn't they? The fact that he didn't push for the title challenge because his best friend his gym mate was the champion, and they'd said, "Look, we're never going to fight. When Aljo loses, he'll move up and Merab will take over." Yeah, they've done exactly that. He got a fight of the night bonus and gifted 25 grand to Aljo for his upcoming wedding, which I think is beautiful. The fact that they stayed true and loyal to each other. He's added John Wood to his camp, which I think you can see the benefits, but maintained the relationship with Sarah Longo, which is Ray Longo, Matt Serra, Chris Weidman, all those guys. You know, he's kept that team together and added to it. A lot of fighters moved gyms to get better, but he's added to it and he's brought John Wood in there but kept his original team. Merab's one of my favourite fighters. His resume is fucking unreal. He's beat Henry Cejudo, Peter Yan, Sean O'Malley twice, fucking Jose Aldo. Do you know, that's five of the best. Jose Aldo's got to go down as one of the greatest featherweights of all time. Henry Cejudo.
The greatest. For me, I say Jose, possibly.
I thought you were dismissing him as one of the
greatest.
No. Probably the.
Yeah.
He had a 10-year unbeaten run. Everybody forgets that. But listen, if he'd have fought Conor again, he'd have beat the dog shit out of him. He bought into Conor's shit, tried attacking and got caught. It's that simple. But people
the fact the fight was delayed by 6 months after an already 12-month build-up.
They forget what he did before that as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Too many people look at the Conor fight as being his legacy. Look at what Aldo went and done after the Conor fight. Yes, he never picked up a belt again, but he was still a fucking dog and fucking competitive.
Still fighting now.
Yeah, granted at bantamweight, but he was still a dog. Look, Merab is... Anyone they don't like his personality, he's the wrong way, but what he does as a fighter, he is phenomenal.
You can't. His accomplishments, you can't ignore them. Yeah, I love him, and last night's card for me was up there for one of the cards of the year, I believe. For me, it had good fights from top to bottom. The prelims were good as well. Have you got anything further to add? I know we've had a couple more boxing fights. That wraps us up for UFC. I know Jai Opetaia got a win and Nakatani did what Nakatani does. What do you think of those two fights before we sign off, Liam?
Summed it up. Opetaia done what Opetaia does. Dorta Costa or Zerdo next. Get him ringside. Maybe get him to leave before Jake Paul gets in the ring, but get him ringside for that co-main event. Absolutely. And Nakatani's the man.
I think he beats Inoue. I do. I really do.
This is where I'm going. Imagine if there wasn't Inoue in Japan right now, the Nakatani hype train would be even higher. You can't not love him. It's been a great weekend. Fantastic. Look, it's a weekend that's restored a bit of faith in fight sports, hasn't it? Because you've got a moment that in 10 years' time will still get replayed in what Fabio done, because it's one of those moments, the chips are down, look what he's done. You've had another hometown fight to pick up a European title. Fantastic. Josh Kelly's got a win. All right, what's he going to do next? Opetaia's moving towards the unification. Look, it's been a great weekend. The UFC topped it off for me. It's a shame it's a quieter weekend, but Richardson, Hitchens, and Kambosos and Andy Cruz's fight on that undercard with Lomachenko retiring, it's made it very interesting.
You forgot that Abdullah Mason got a win. Keyshawn Davis's fight in the changing rooms rather than in the ring. You fucking moron!
Do we want to give that
absolute dickhead? But no, it's been a fantastic weekend. Thanks for everybody for joining us. DJ Pat, Antonio, Luca, JT. Sorry, I didn't get you. I missed your question. Dan Toward, I think he got a 6-round stoppage on Friday night.
No, round 5, 6 round.
Great performance. So sorry, I missed your question there, JT. But thank you for everybody for joining us. Liam, it's been a pleasure as always, my brother. I will leave you to your. I dread to think what you're.
We say live. We just carry on.
What you're going to be going into now, but enjoy your evening. Thanks to everybody for joining us. You can catch myself, Liam, and Sam Walker on Tuesday night over on SW Fight Up for a roundup again of the weekend for the No Punches Pulled. Liam will be on Jay's Fight Talk on Wednesday for Liam's Fight Night picks. We've got Straight Talk on Thursday with myself and Liam. That's all for now. Thanks for joining us. Keep punching.